Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is a brand new author and exclusive to the DMT Forest of Fear channel, and from the wonderful mind of David Morningway. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story, entitled The Mountain, Part 4, The Storm of Hell. Let's get straight into that. A slight tremor went through the earth as the key first hit the ground, felled by the guardian and attacker alike, before an all-consuming roaring sound, similar to a speeding locomotive, issued throughout the mountain, followed by what sounded eerily like billions of rage-filled screams and fear-ridden cries, as the front line of the creatures seemed to be pulled back and down quicker than Wade's eyes could even fully process. The same thing began happening to the center of the army, where the obsidian key had landed, with Lacori disappearing everywhere, until a massive black hole became visible upon the ground, radiating a deep orange and red glow, in which the horrific screams and desperate cries echoed from. As soon as the hole became visible, it vanished just as quick, taking the screams and cries with it, and leaving only a sulphuric smell in the air. The entire event must have only lasted a mere 3 seconds, thought Wade, but in that short time, almost half of the Elroc's army were disposed of, in a fate that Wade assumed to be worse than death. Or maybe monsters like that were honored as heroes in what Wade assumed to have been hell itself. But how did... Ryden began before watching the remaining Lacori quickly regroup and ready another charge.
Well, let's see what's behind door number 2, shall we?
Thorn said comically, nodding towards the elegant golden horn that Ryden almost forgot he was holding, due to the battle's power shift starting to change right in front of him. Wait for the second charge, like Mr. Handsome said, whispered Wade. If we get another event like that, the battle will be all but won, said John confidently. Everyone get their long-range weaponry back up, ordered Ryden. Don't let them breathe for a second, he said as he put the horn to his mouth in preparation. Wade kept being taken aback at how well the Lycans could talk and enunciate their words, with all those imposing fangs in their canine-like snout. However, they were part human, Wade reminded himself. Wade's illuminated visor displayed that only 19 Lacori now remained, including Elroc and Lochran, which meant 24 of them had to be sent straight to hell, while 9 of them had to be taken out by the Guardian's long-range weaponry. And with another thundering roar from the Ancient, the rest of the army charged once again. Ryden blew into the second artifact, and unlike the sounds produced priorly, a noise more similar to a choir of singing angels issued through the horn, along with its beautiful trumpet-like sound. After the horn was used, it materialized into a glorious sparkling golden light that shot into the night sky like a comet. The second the golden rocket of light disappeared into the night sky, so did the night itself, along with any fear or doubt the Guardians held in their hearts. For rising behind them like a glorious spotlight from heaven was the morning sun, and it did not rise alone. Following the ascension of the morning sun was an orchestra unlike anything Wade had ever heard, forcing the rampaging army to stop in place and put their oversized hands over both their eyes and ears, as if they could not handle such benevolent sights and sounds. The Guardians wasted no time in firing at the stunned monsters, taking down 2 before Elroc created a circle of dark shadow energy to form around the army, corroding the bullets before they ever came close to making contact with the enemy. And as the same dark energy now hovered around their heads, removing any unpleasant sights and sounds that were previously stunning them, before the dark shield was erected by the Ancient, about 4 or 5 creatures tried running to the sides, only to be quickly eviscerated by the treelings. Wade's visor now showed 15 Lacori remaining, as Elrock sent the circle of dark energy flying powerfully in all directions, rotting away part of the treeling's body as a wave of corrosion hit them, hurting them, but not at all taking them out of the fight. And as the dark wave came closer to the Guardians, they all braced for impact before Daniel knelt down on his knees and extended his arms wide and outstretched, using every ounce of his mech suit's power to create one very long, rectangular shield that, at the last moment, saved everyone, and even spared the two smart turrets. Although not hurt, Daniel's shields now went down from 100% to 89%, as he stood up and readied his overpowered appendages for the incoming combat. Elrock himself led the charge this time, as he and the elemental charged furiously at one another, their andas clashing so hard that it sent shockwaves throughout the mountain. At this time, the charging army had reached a line of warriors, crashing into them as the battle reached its pinnacle now. Hand-to-hand combat. Two Locori simultaneously went over and under Wade's first blast of explosive machine gun fire, as one grabbed his arm and the other his leg, throwing him into Daniel before he could activate his shield or attempt to catch Wade. The force sent them both crashing into Warbane, knocking him down as Locori jumped high and tried coming down hard on Warbane. As the Lycan positioned the Anzio, he was still holding upward and blew the monster in half, its upper body then exploding in the process. Warbane rose quickly and unfazed, pulling out an enormous battle axe that glowed red and superheated, as if it had just been pulled out of a blacksmith's forge and possessed one long sigil across each of its double-bladed heads that glowed red. Wade noticed that he had two smaller axes hooked onto his armor belt that glowed in the same fashion. And Warbane quickly charged at the group of Locori, swiping his blade towards the ground and making a wave of fire shoot upwards towards the creature's legs, as the three Locori jumped high to dodge his attack and come down on a Lycan with their claws. Now, this must have been Warbane's plan all along, however, for he knowingly jumped back as he readied his axe before the creatures could even begin to change their course. And smiling like a baseball player that knows he's about to hit the home run, Warbane swung hard and true, cutting the closest two monsters in half while cauterizing their wound, as the second was sliced open and burnt so severely he died moments later. As Wade and Daniel stood, a Locori went flying into Wade before Daniel stopped it with his right shield arm, sending it flying back towards the ground hurt and stunned, where Wade instantly blew it into pieces with his arm's machine gun module. Another Locori began advancing on Wade as he unleashed his arm's turrets again, but this creature knew enough to zigzag back and forth very quickly, making Wade miss most of his shots as the creature closed the distance. And due to the frenetic chaos unfolding around them, Daniel did not notice the Locori crouching behind him, charging up its signature and deadly dash attack. And so when he went to block the incoming creature from getting Wade, he was blindsided by an overwhelming blow to the back of his helmet, bringing his armor now down to 70%, as the blow knocked him against the mansion and then to the ground. Wade gave up on his hand turrets and activated his twin forearm blades. The creature ducked his first strike and used the momentum it built up, running to grab the arm Wade missed with, spinning him around with surprising strength until he crashed into Daniel yet again. Before the creature had let go of Wade's arm while swinging him, Wade managed one desperate slice with his other blade that managed to cut off the monster's arm. Wade noticed something different about this Locori. What he mistook for ill-fitting armor was actually a small metal box attached to its chest and with a small blinking light. Wade remembered his training with Rose and how she emphasized to always trust your instincts in battle. And his instincts were screaming a word at him that he instantly yelled out loud through his visor's loudspeakers. Bomb! The Locori was close enough not only to take out Wade and Daniel, but Raiden and Thorn as well. Before he could consider the decision, Daniel jumped in front of everyone and extended his left arm's nano shield just in time to take on the majority of the explosion. When the smoke cleared, not one Guardian was hurt, although Daniel's left arm on the mech suit was completely destroyed. His rear arm was fine, and a blue nano-mesh shield covered the breached portion of the mech suit, protecting Daniel and rediverting his shields, which now read 39%. The giant explosion had caught almost everyone's attention, causing a very brief pause in the battle, where Wade saw the runes on John's hand, glowing white now, holding a LaCourre in midair with some sort of telekinetic power, before his hand's runes switched to a glowing red, where an energy blade the same colour manifested from his hand as the creature fell from the release of its telekinetic hold and was impaled upon the red blade. As the creature fell on his red blade, he simply moved his hand back and forth quickly, dissecting the beast before its weight pulled John down. This unfortunately made black blood cover John's head and body, having to use his normal hand to physically wipe gore off his face. But before Wade could take in anything else, the battle renewed itself, and chaos once again filled the air. The forest elemental and the ancient LaCourre had yet to deal each other any real damage, and were still clashing massive antlers, sending sparks of dark green and spurts of misty black shadow everywhere from their specific energy signatures, contained within the core of one another's antlers. Like life and death frenetically fighting one another as they desperately looked for any weaknesses. Everywhere the green sparks hit the ground, new life would instantly emerge from it, usually a large flower or a small tree. As when the ancient's black smoky sludge hit the ground, it instantly killed or rotted any life, leaving black smoking holes and beautiful floral patterns all around them as they clashed on. Wade and Daniel both moved to help Raiden, who was battling two oversized and abnormally large LaCourre soldiers. When both creatures attempted lunging at Raiden from opposing sides, he simultaneously jumped back and spun around, swinging his long sword and connected with one of the creature's midsections, as thunder roared from his blade, loud and deafening, sending each half of the monster flying about 120 yards apart in opposite directions. As Raiden confidently stepped forward to destroy the other LaCourre that had tried lunging at him, he yelled at Wade and Daniel to help Thorn, who was surrounded by 4 LaCourre, as 2 more were heading his way, and Reinhardt and Warbane were busy handling the others with John's help. The creatures seemed to be trying to send the majority of their numbers to Thorn, as if he was their greatest threat. And oh boy, was he. Wade and Daniel soon witnessed. Wielding his lightning spear, Thorn moved effortlessly between the creatures, using such skilled martial art tactics that Wade thought it even looked more like he was dancing than fighting for his very life. Every turn and spin that Thorn executed connected on some vital portion of the creatures around him, both cutting them open and electrocuting them in unison. As the LaCourre lunged at Thorn from behind, he lunged forward and kicked off the front monster's chest, crushing part of its chest as he used the momentum to flip backwards, soaring over the creature advancing behind him, upside down, while pushing his spear tip downwards and slicing open the creature's chest above its heart. While the wound itself wasn't deep enough to kill the monster, the lightning electrocuted its heart, killing it before Thorn even landed on the ground. And as Thorn hit the ground, he brought his spear down hard on the earth, sending a stream of lightning into the ground and soaring towards another charging creature's feet, and then climbing his body until its entire form was covered in lightning, before going limp seconds later and hitting the ground. As Thorn was already on the move again, rushing towards 3 more creatures running towards him in a spear formation. He threw his spear hard into the chest of the creature leading the attack, killing it instantly as he jumped over the impaled LaCourre while grabbing his spear from the monster's chest, ripping it apart as he did so before landing a good distance away. The creature to his right had moved quickly upon him as it swung its claws at him, only for his spear to block the attack while pushing the LaCourre's arms down and locking it in place with the spear shaft, as he used his bare claws to swipe at the creature's head, completely ripping its lower jaw off in the process. The creature on his left, however, was just fast enough to claw Thorn's side, which was mostly absorbed by the armor as he winced in minor pain and was knocked to the ground, where the creature then wasted no time in jumping up high to come down on him with a killing blow to the face. However, the only thing that met the creature as it reached Thorn was his spear tip through its head. With the others now taking out the remaining LaCourre, Thorn, Wade and Daniel looked at one another in victory, Except for the battle of the Titans that were still in stalemate by the Deer and Elrock. For even a weakened ancient Lacori would destroy the Guardians, most likely, unless they could help the Elemental right now. Once the Guardians regrouped, they started to head towards the ongoing battle to aid the Elemental, but unknown to all, even Elrock, Lachlan apparently had given a retainer of Lacori a teleportation stone. For in a flash of dark blue, 13 Lacori came gliding out of the treetops and with furry underwings similar to flying squirrels. They were led by Lachlan himself, whose underwings looked more like bats than his furry compatriots. The Guardians did not notice this airborne platoon hovering their way, and just as one of the flying creatures was about to claw the back of Thorn's head, Daniel saw it, and used his remaining arm to grab the creature from behind its antlers, and viciously pull back and down hard, with all of the mech suit's strength, hyper-extending its neck and back, until the monster's spine ripped out of its own throat. Wade began sending the remaining explosive machine gun fire upwards towards the hovering threat, only managing to kill one as they moved so quickly and gracefully in the air. And this left 10 Lacori soldiers now, including Lachlan, who glided up very high into the side of the battlefield with another Lacori going in the opposite directions. The treeling tried to swing at Lachlan, but the monster just latched onto its arm, rotting away the tree anywhere he touched it, before hastily scaling the arm to the head, where an oversized fish shrouded in dark shadow punched through the back of the treeling's head like a weak particle board. Wade noticed the other Lacori was trying to do the same to the other treeling, but was having much more difficulty than Lachlan. But he had to worry about the 10 Lacori surrounding the Guardians now, and focus his attacks on them. Wade managed to kill another Lacori with his arm blades, and wound another as the remaining Guardians were working together perfectly, dispatching the new Lacori as if it was just another day at work. Wade marveled at their skills, strength and speed, especially Thorn. He seemed to operate on a whole other level than the others when it came to combat. A true prodigy of war. As a smile started to come across Wade's face, he was hit extremely hard in the back, knocking him down and bringing his shields to 71%. And as Wade stood, he saw Lachlan on the back of the other treeling's back, riding its headless and armless body to the ground, before leaping a great distance back into the air, before the tree began its deceased descent, and then took off gliding elsewhere. Wade looked at the wooden arm about 70 feet long on the ground beside him, and assumed Lachlan had hit him with the dead treeling's arm before the appendage kept rotting, until it withered to nothing more than a pile of rotten sawdust. "Daniel!" yelled Wade. "Follow me!" As he had just seen Lachlan flying through the air towards the mansion. Wade could see fleshy veins and tendons tipped with talons which made up its underwings, reminding Wade of some kind of demonic sugar glider as he floated closer. The smart turrets began to fire at the hovering monstrosity, with Lachlan using his dark shadow energy coalescing around the claws to corrode the bullets into powdered rust before they even come close enough to make contact with him. Before Lachlan glided behind the mansion and out of sight, he landed behind one of the smart turrets, where he simply held out his shadow-covered hand, and Wade watched as the metal turret rusted away to nothing in front of his very eyes. Then Lachlan jumped high and far towards the other turret and repeated this process. The Guardians were making short work of Lachlan's hovering backup, and with all the warriors, save for Mjoen and Thorn, had picked up miniguns, and Zeos and heat-seeking rocket launchers, practically obliterating the monsters before they could try and make landfall. And with the remaining 4 Lacori making their way around the mansion for cover, and to no doubt try and come up behind the others, who were busy aiming upwards to the sky at its vile inhabitants. Mjoen ran around the opposite direction of the flying Lacori as to try and surprise them, while Thorn had very quickly scaled the entire 7-story mansion, unbeknownst to the hovering creatures. As the Lacori glided around the corner of the mansion, they briefly made a line, and at that moment Thorn drew his lightning spear directly through the line, impaling 3 of the creatures to death. As the third swerved away at the last moment, only to be met with a large ball of fire from Mjoen's hand. The beast fell to the ground in a flaming dead heap, and Thorn pulled his spear out of the Lacoris, who laid on the ground impaled like a demonic shish kebab, the lightning still arcing between the dead bodies. Wade's visor now showed that all the Lacori were dead, save for Lachlan and Elrock, the two most dangerous threats. Wade saw Lachlan crouch behind the side of the mansion after John and Thorne joined the others, and aimed what was left of his arm's explosive rounds at the monstrosity, before a loud cracking sound was heard behind him. As Wade spun around, Elrock was flying towards him upside down, for apparently the deer had given up on clashing antlers and spun around quickly, kicking the ancient with his hind legs and sending him flying towards the mansion and Wade. Elrock hit Wade hard, sending them both into the mansion and cracking its walls slightly, but not activating a protective barrier, most likely due to Wade's close proximity to it. When the ancient rose, it saw Wade on the ground and gave him a mighty stomp with its front clawed leg, sending his shields into 13%, and raised its leg to finish off Wade, for his shields could in no way take another hit of that magnitude. Wade exhaled and closed his eyes, accepting his inevitable fate and with a smile on his face, and thanked God for allowing him to be part of something so important. Thanked him for even briefly giving his life what it had been missing since Sarah had died. Purpose. For in a world that can make you feel so useless, so worthless, what more could one ask for? "Thank you," Wade said conclusively. And as the dark shadows of Elrock's giant leg grew closer, Wade's visor was filled with a dark green light that overwhelmed the encroaching darkness, freezing the ancient's leg in place before it could crush Wade to death. And not wasting the unexpected opportunity, Wade swiftly rolled out of the way and stood up to view the scene. Before Elrock could finish him off, the elemental had shot a strong and steady stream of dark green lightning, not only damaging the ancient, but freezing him in place so Wade could escape. The elemental, who had lived for vast centuries or more, and owed Wade nothing, had just risked its life and most of its power to save him. And the latter statement proved true, for as the deer released Elrock from its electrifying grip, it was physically exhausted, visibly panting as it lowered its majestic antlers in an attempt to regain some energy while still staying on guard of the ancient, who was shakily making to all fours. Although injured, Elrock obviously now had far more energy than the deer, due to its saving Wade's life. Wade glanced around to see if anyone else could help him save the deer, even though the Guardians were no match for Elrock, even together. Plus, they were dealing with about 6 more Lacori that Wade's visor must not have picked up due to the extreme technical damage. Or perhaps Lachlan had used yet another teleportation stone to summon help. Reinhardt raced forward wielding a massive hammer that glowed in a yellowish golden runes. And as he met the first 3 Lacori, he raised his hammer high as possible, seemingly to smash the creature in front. However, this was a trick by the Lycan, one that the creature fell for instantly, for as the seemingly vulnerable Reinhardt held his hammer so high, it left his legs exposed. The Lacori lunged for Reinhardt's legs, where there was a gap in the armor, just for the Lycan to jump and stomp on the creature's head, while leaping to the side and backswinging his hammer into the Lacori on his right that sought to flank him. The weapon let out a thunderous roar, similar to Raiden's long sword, before the creature was obliterated upon impact, on which small chunks of gore and bits of antler flying in every direction. It left a circle of black mist where the creature's foul blood was literally vaporized, and Reinhardt jumped into the air after completing his attack and came down furiously hard on the Lacori it previously stomped into the ground, destroying it before it could fully recover. By this time, Wade saw the rest of the Guardians, minus Daniel, who remained in close proximity to him, had joined Reinhardt and were annihilating the remaining Lacori soldiers. Wade began to notice a change in the air and environment around him, as the orchestra of beautiful light and benevolent sound above the battlefield had grown into much, much more now, for an aurora borealis of what appeared to be rainbows now illuminated the sky above them. Wade assumed his mind simply could not comprehend the colours above him, colours that did not exist in this reality, the colours of heaven. and so his mind just projected every known familiar colour at once to compensate seeing something his eyes and very brain couldn't fully process. Hence the amalgamation of rainbow-like waves above them. Furthermore, that was not all the sky now held, for in glorious disbelief, Wade saw 4 large winged creatures circling the unnaturally beautiful lights, barely visible as shadow silhouettes, as they were so very high above everyone. More alive and free than he ever thought possible, Wade stood still among a raging sea of war and chaos, somewhere between heaven and hell, and Wade's heightened senses were now making the entire battle seem calmer, like it was slowing down a bit, or so he thought at first. The battlefield kept slowing down until panic started to come over Wade, for what he mistook for some heightened battle sense was in fact reality itself continually slowing down, until the battle and its participants, along with the very air itself, stood completely frozen in time. Wade looked around frantically, trying to desperately find an explanation to what had just occurred, but only finding to his further shock that both friends and foes were positioned as still and immobile as wax figurines, except for Reinhardt, who oddly had disappeared from the scene altogether. Wade saw the elemental, with its head down, looking absolutely drained, and he saw Elrock, who made it to its feet and was about to begin another frenetic charge towards the tired deer. Wade saw the Guardians circling the last 2 Lochori, closing in for the kill, as Lochran used his newly summoned brethren as nothing more than a distraction, as he saw Lochran creeping completely unnoticed behind Mjoen, with his long and overpowered arm raised up and shrouded in dark energy, seconds away from delivering a fatal blow to the preoccupied Veil Guardian. Then, wholly unexpectedly, Wade heard something, or at least Wade thought he heard his name. Thought he heard the voice of Wade. The voice sounded out louder and unmistakable this time, cutting off his thoughts. Wade began trembling as he glanced at Lochran to make sure the beast was not mimicking her voice again, but the foul creature remained frozen in place, still in an attack position behind Mjoen. Wade? The voice said again behind him, but softer and more grounded this time, without the faraway, ethereal edge on it. Tears began flowing freely down Wade's face as he smiled and turned to face the voice's master. Sarah? Wade barely managed to choke out between his tears, and then fell to his knees as his legs refused to work right, as he was overwhelmed with love and happiness. And before any words were properly exchanged, Sarah ran over and dropped to her knees to be at Wade's level, somehow phasing through his suit effortlessly as she embraced him tightly. I'm so proud of you, she exclaimed. I told you that you were going to do great things one day, my love. Sarah said to Wade, smiling, and with golden light somewhat visible around her head. Yes, you did, answered Wade, as he both laughed and cried at the same time. This battle is almost won, said Wade. I'm ready to go with you now, Sarah. I've always been ready. I love you, Wade, she said wholeheartedly and with the entirety of her soul, as she softly touched his cheek and gently wiped a tear away, once again defying every law of science, nature, and even heaven and hell. After this day, the world will begin changing forever, Sarah began. Laws, rules, and reality itself will be rewritten. It's up to you, Wade, right now, to decide if the world will be rewritten in the light of creation and love or the shadow of darkness, which will herald unspeakable evil. I just want to come with you, cried Wade. Please, there must be. No, there has to be someone better than me. I just want to go home with you, into the light. Please. You will, my love. I promise, but the world needs you, Wade, and it needs you right now, my love. Wade smiled and covered Sarah's hand that was placed lovingly on his cheek. What must I do, my love? Asked Wade confidently now. You must see, Sarah said, as the light composed of the same unfathomable rainbow essence soared down from heaven and into Sarah's head, which now held a beautiful halo. Where then it transferred to her hand, and then into Wade's very mind and soul, lighting his eyes up with heavenly light as a tidal wave of images and potential scenarios flooded his consciousness. Wade instantly saw a second regiment of even more Lakori foot soldiers marching towards the Vale, in which Elrock had torn, and saw them mere minutes away. Wade saw Elrock kill the Elemental after completing the charge in which he was currently frozen in. And Wade saw Lachlan killing John and then wounding Raiden before he teleported away with his seemingly endless supply of the extremely rare dark blue stones. Wade saw a tree of life inside the locked room in John's mansion, and that in truth it was never truly 7 levels high, just the bottom living area, the top floor, which was John's bedroom and private quarters, and the rest was hollowed out to house the tree itself. Wade saw the ancient Lakori enter the tree, and then the whole of the world, both sides of the veil, being covered in an all-consuming shadow. A true Lakori plague, among much worse. Furthermore, Wade saw everything he must do, exactly in order to prevent this, and then embraced that reality as he came back to the present. "I can hold time until you physically act, until you make your first move," said Sarah. Wade kissed her, and precisely at the exact same time they each said, "I love you." And smiling at his beloved one last time, Wade grabbed one of the Anzio rifles. The Lycans had dropped, and using his suit's strength, he aimed a massive rifle at Lochran's frozen form as he had crept behind John to kill him. Everything must be done perfect, thought Wade, whose damaged suit at this point looked more like scrap metal being barely held together by his suit's nano shields, which glowed blue between damaged chunks of steel. Exhaling slowly, Wade squeezed the trigger, and the moment the 20mm rifle shell tore through Lochran's chest, time once again renewed itself. As the heavens above closed their gates, the lights, noises, and Sarah were pulled back within the large halo in the sky, as the morning sun dissipated back into the dark void of the new moon's night. Wade had just put an armor-piercing bullet the size of a small rocket through Lochran's chest, yet he lived. Lochran recovered to his feet weakly as he clutched a gaping wound in his chest, as John spun around with the runes upon his metal hand glowing a blood red, with a large energized blade the same color emerging forth. He ran at Lochran and swung hard, only for his blade to be blocked by Lochran's dark black glowing clawed hand. Well, the one that wasn't clutching at his chest wound. They fought like this for a small moment, each one parrying or blocking the other's attack, whilst countering their own moves, before Wade came in with his arm's superheated blade and tried to decapitate Lochran on the spot while being preoccupied, just for the creature to once again disappear in a dark blue flash. "Sneaky bastard," yelled Raiden, as John turned to scream at Wade for ruining his revenge, but Wade cut everyone off instantly. "There is a second regiment of even more Lakori that will cross the Vale in less than 10 minutes, screamed Wade without a semblance of doubt in his voice. This exclamatory statement had most definitely grabbed everyone's attention, save for Reinhardt, who looked around the battlefield, or more specifically at Elrock, with intense concentration and an unwaveringly proud stance. The rest of the Guardians looked at Wade in confused panic, as Wade turned to see Elrock closing in on the deer far too quickly, and feared that they were already out of time, before the Elemental let out a deafening yet beautiful cry for help, which was quickly answered. A great humanoid being composed of pure fire, standing about 8 feet tall, emerged from the earth directly in front of the rapidly approaching ancient, and lit itself up bright and hot like a phoenix, stopping Elrock in place, while slightly burning his face and chest. 2 more humanoid-like figures emerged from the earth behind Elrock, one constructed of the earthen rock itself, while the other was made out of water. Another final shape materialized above the ancient Lakori, being a man composed of air itself, as it grinned down at Elrock before the rock humanoid grabbed Elrock's right leg and held him tight. The man of water grabbed the ancient's other leg before instantly turning himself into ice, freezing the leg solidly in place. Wade's hope ignited again as he turned to Daniel to speak as quickly as he could. We both have to nano-disperse at the same time as the ancient Elrock. Nano what? Asked Daniel, puzzled. We have done this 3 times with Roseman. Come on, said Wade impatiently, before slapping his suit's chest and saying slowly but loudly, Nano. Then Wade thrust his arms towards Elrock, again saying slowly, Dispersion. Oh, Daniel said, catching on. The supersuit throw, he said. Yes, answered Wade, exhaling exhaustively. We have to perform the supersuit throw, Wade said reluctantly, at the exact same time as Elrock. It's the only way we can knock that son of a bitch down and damage him enough to both save the forest elemental and give us a fighting chance, said Wade. The only way to prevent the second army from crossing the Veil is to kill Elrock, the ancient asshole, right now, said Wade, emphasizing the great importance of this task. We don't have time to waste. Come on, yelled Wade as Daniel and himself began moving on Elrock.
Wait,
yelled the deep voice of Reinhardt commandingly.
That alone won't be enough.
He yelled to everyone now. What do you mean? Asked Wade impatiently.
I mean,
Reinhardt began,
that you're not the only one who was visited by someone through the gates of heaven. Not the only one who was given a vision of what must be done.
That's possible, said John. Heaven was opened, and maybe that was the real gift of the Golden Horn, instead of just temporarily blinding the masters. I trust Reinhardt with my life, and if he says that Wade and himself were visited by angels, then damn it, I believe him, concluded John with conviction within his voice. Agreed, said Raiden. What do you need us to do?
Just keep any potential threats away from the boys after they nano-disperse and are vulnerable. I'll do the rest.
Wasting no time, Reinhardt yelled for Wade and Daniel to go, and as they did, he turned to Thorn and placed his hand on his shoulder. Reinhardt then held out his hammer and handed it to Thorn.
Here, make sure someone worthy gets this weapon, little brother. You are a good judge of character, so I know you will make the right choice. No,
said Thorn, backing up from him.
We will fight him together.
And Reinhardt placed his hammer at Thorn's feet, as he smiled and looked into Thorn's eyes lovingly.
It wasn't an angel. Mom says she loves you, and that your father will be so proud of you. I'm so proud of you, Thornwald. You were born a runt, but have surpassed even myself in being a great warrior. You deserve that silver armor, and one day the gold. I was shown what storm of hell is coming to the world, what unspeakable dark power. The world is going to need you, Thornwald. I love you, little brother,
concluded Reinhardt sincerely.
Keep him back, John. This is the only way. It's been an honor serving with each of you,
exclaimed Reinhardt, before he outstretched his arms wide.
No!
Yelled Thorn, running at his brother desperately before the runes on John's hand began glowing white again, as he used telekinesis to hold Thorn in place as Thorn began roaring wildly before the sound quickly began changing into a sad whimper.
Brother, no!
Thorn kept crying as Reinhardt began to pray.
Creator of life, be I worthy. Ascend me unto the heavens, and thus before I return, may the light you once breathed into me as life shine at its brightest one last time.
Near the end of his prayer, Reinhardt's voice started becoming more ethereal sounding than physical. Like with every word he said, his body became more energy than physical matter. Reinhardt's eyes had remained closed during this prayer, while a steady building golden aura became more visible around him with every word he said. And after concluding his prayer to the Creator, he opened his eyes, which glowed the same golden, almost blinding energy. Reinhardt instantly took off running at an unprecedented speed, leaving a trail of glittering golden cinders in his wake, while flanking the other side of Elrock. The boys, without hesitation, began their nano-dispersion tactic on the opposing side of Elrock, just after the Ancient had broken free from its rear attackers, and sending chunks of ice and rock flying behind him. As the aforementioned humanoids were obliterated by Elrock's massively clawed hind legs, the Ancient began lashing through the walls of air and fire created by the remaining humanoid protectors with his claws, making rather quick work of them, only taking on some minor burns and abrasions, in which he was already starting to heal from. "Now!" yelled Wade, as Daniel and himself hit their glowing chest adapters and putting both of their arms towards Elrock, sending a hailstorm of metal and blue energy directly into the Ancient's vicinity. The attack staggered him to the side, and he fell to his knees in pain as fountains of black blood poured from multiple lacerations on him, along with bad burns from the blue nano shields. Elrock began laughing as he slowly began making it to his feet, before a roaring comet of golden light which echoed an otherworldly deep battle cry came soaring from the sky towards Elrock's face. He was about halfway from standing back up when Elrock raised his head and instantly opened its enormous maw, seemingly to crush Reinhardt to death in its oversized jaws, but was only met with an explosion of pure light. About 1,000 times brighter than a military flashbang grenade, but without assaulting the Guardian's senses whatsoever. In fact, the sight and sound seemed somehow beautiful, thought Wade, astonished. The glorious and explosive effects of Reinhardt's last light spell had destroyed one of Elrock's eyes, chipped away most of his skeletal armor around his face, and burnt large portions of his chest and arms, whilst also completely knocking the ancient Lecorite down in the process. Elrock landed belly up from Reinhardt's sacrificial explosion, and with his deeply cracked skull leaking heavy amounts of black blood, killing all the grass within the immediate area. Before Elrock could even begin to lift his head, the elemental came down hard and fast on his throat, frenetically moving its flaming dark green antlers back and forth without hesitation, until the deer had fully decapitated the Ancient. But not before Elrock had thrust upwards with both of his oversized claws, plunging them both into the elemental's chest until it pierced its heart, corroding it away with its dark energy before his arms went limp from the immediate loss of his head. As Elrock's lifeless claws fell out of the deer's chest, dark green glowing blood flowed from the elemental's chest and poured onto Elrock's corpse, making a tree more beautiful than anything Wade had ever seen sprout forth from the Ancient's remains, along with every flower and remarkable bit of colourful foliage that existed. Although mortally wounded, the forest elemental did not yet fall, and scooped up Elrock's head with its antlers, which no longer glowed, and tossed the severed head to Thorn's feet, where he now stood grasping his dead brother's hammer with an iron grip. To Wade's utter shock, Elrock's head was still alive, and now offered Thorn unlimited power if he was to simply kneel to him and say yes. "If you do, you will have enough power to kill these weak nothings without even trying. And I will resurrect, and we shall go to Lord Samuel together, victorious, and be given godlike power." Elrock began monologuing with a practiced skill, as Thorn interrupted him.
"Never compromise," said
Thorn calmly.
"Never. Not in the face of great power, and not in the face of death."
The Ancient began nervously pleading, harder in desperation, as Thorn concluded his statement.
"Do you know who taught me that?"
asked Thorn with a bit more intensity and conviction in his voice, as Elrock's head still offered adieus and pleas.
"Do you know who taught me that?"
said Thorn loudly and growling this time.
"Do you?"
screamed Thorn. "Please," wheezed out Elrock desperately.
"My brother!"
roared Thorn, as he brought Reinhardt's hammer down with all of his strength on Elroc's remaining eye, sending an explosion of bone and black gore in all directions as his head was completely eviscerated. Before the pieces of the ancient Lakori hit the ground, they seemed to burn away into nothing but wispy black smoke, until that too faded to black dust within the wind, which had now decided to breathe again, concluding the night's battle. The ancient's body faded to ash within the tree that was erected from the elemental's lifeblood, and would serve as a nice fertilizer for the young sapling. The forest elemental limped towards the guardians, leaving trails of blood flora in his wake wherever the last few trickles of his blood hit the ground. Everyone, except Wade, ran with haste to the deer's aid, where the latter briefly ran inside the mansion before swiftly returning with the handsome man's last gift, as his final instructions repeated through Wade's mind. Wade ran to join the others who were nearly next to the deer, who lay on the ground surrounded by beautiful flowers and ivy as the remnants of its lifeblood drained out. And with a strained effort, the deer managed to lift its head and look into Wade's eyes, and then to the jar he held. "Thank you for saving my life," said Wade, as the great deer, forest elemental, and guardian nodded at him once more. He laid down his head and died. Before anyone could comment, a bright light gently rose from the deer's core, as beautiful moss instantly engulfed the deer's body as its spirit raised high into the air and then began to slowly fall back towards the ground. And as the growing spirit grew closer to the ground, lighting up the night like a divine flare, Wade opened the jar, and the sentient ball of descending energy made a conscious detour to the translucent container and went inside. Instantly, the runes engraved on the glass jar lit up the same colour and brightness as the deer's spirit. "Quickly," yelled Wade, "we must let it go within the tree of life. John, hurry, unlock that door. And quickly, please." "I don't remember telling you about the tree," John said breathlessly as he ran to keep up with Wade. "Between what you and Lochran told me, I figured it out," Wade responded while John opened the locked door. As John finished opening the door, he winced at a laceration on his arm before turning the runes on his hand pink and healing the wound within seconds. "Is it too cliché to say I'm getting too old for this shit?" John said before he opened up the locked door and pushed it open wide. And there was a long hallway that visibly led to a larger chamber ahead. Wade took off with Daniel at his heels and the rest in tow. "You've earned a peaceful retirement more than anyone I know," commented Ryden. "Maybe it's not such a bad—" "No!" John cut him off. "Not until I kill Lochran," John remarked. "Yeah, or he kills you," commented Ryden. "Either way is fine with me," replied John, smiling as they caught up with the boys. Now Wade was taken aback by the glorious scene in front of him. Although the tree was mostly bare, it was a towering and marvellously pretty sight to behold. The limbs seemed to move ever so slowly, almost like they were breathing, and with bark made of white and leaves of sky blue, and held a little over a dozen pieces of glowing fruit, each varying in colour, and which Wade and Daniel now knew to be mana. "It's gotten worse," Ryden said glumly. "Yes," answered John. "The more trees of life that evil corrupts, the worse it gets." Wade ran to the front of the gargantuanly thick tree, where a large triangular opening stood at the tree's base, and opened the jar. The forest elemental spirit floated towards the opening at the bottom of the tree, and as it crossed the threshold and into the beyond, an explosion of light seemed to happen everywhere, obstructing the guardian's vision until the light slowly faded away, leaving an overwhelming feeling of positive energy and peaceful contentment in its stead. Then the light left entirely, being replaced by an entire new and awe-inspiring scene thereafter. The tree, that only moments ago stood almost barren and withered, burst forth with an abundance of life. Its canopy now grew thick, and with light blue leaves, so overwhelming the roof that it looked as if one were staring into the sky itself. Every limb, of which the white bark seemed to glow now, was filled to the brim with large glowing and pulsating mana, in which fairies now circled around like a picture straight out of a fantasy novel. The fairies seemed to be originating from the triangular opening at the base of the Tree of Life, which not only had opened up larger, but emanated a golden light coming from within. "Amazing," John said in a happy, yet still bewildered tone, as a smile grew on his face, completely different than the skirmish grin he usually wore, before stating, "That should even the balance up a bit." "Indeed it will, old friend," said Ryden, putting an arm softly on John's shoulder. After a moment, Ryden removed his arm and turned to John seriously. "We are going to have a lot to tell, Arella," he said, staring into the golden light emanating from the tree.
"Yeah,"
Thorn started.
"Like, who in the hell is the handsome man who saved our asses tonight? Although,"
said Thorn,
"I'm starting to get a pretty good idea. At first, I thought it was just some crazy powerful wizard or something,"
Thorn continued.
"But who else would literally have a key to the gates of hell and a musical horn from heaven that essentially pretty much turned into a key, too?" "I mean, we will discuss all of that with Arella on the other side of the veil," Ryden interjected logically. "It's time," yelled John before looking directly at Wade and Daniel, with an imperative look in his eyes. "It's time to make a choice, boys," John said a bit softer this time. "One of two things is going to happen now. One, I can perform a very quick and simple spell that would erase any memories or consequential side effects of the past few days, and you will simply wake up in your beds with no memory of this. We will take care of the police, and Daniel will have a new boss without him or the rest of the world being any wiser. 2. You can follow us through the Tree of Life and begin a whole new existence in a whole new world. However, access back through the veil, while permitted, is highly limited and monitored in most cases. You would join us in helping Arella, the Archangels, and the Creator in saving the world. And if things come to the worst possible ending, maybe even the universe. The Lacori plague is growing more every day, and they are just the beginning of this storm. There is far worse coming than what you saw tonight. Although tonight was an easy 8 out of 10 on the shit you could get into scale. But there are more ways to help than fighting, of course. I was just impressed by the two of you, to be honest," said John seriously. "Boys," John said, glancing at each of them, "no matter what you choose," but was cut off by Wade sprinting into the tree at full speed as he vanished with a small flash of light. "Now that's the spirit,"
yelled Thorn, laughing as they all turned their heads to look at Daniel now. "I got nothing tying me down here," said Daniel, "and it will be nice to keep this feeling of purpose and self-growth," as he straightened his back and began walking towards the portal, slowly but surely. And as they all neared the tree, Daniel smiled and looked at Thorn, who he had felt most comfortable with out of all the lichens, and spoke. "Besides," Daniel started, "I wouldn't mind meeting Rose in person, man. That fierceness and beauty, that's something else."
"Ho ho ho,"
said Thorn, with the rest of the lichens following suit, as if Daniel had mentioned something both completely hilarious and wholly taboo.
"You know that's John's daughter, right?"
Thorn started, in a low volume. "Yeah, and she's single," yelled Thorn much louder and nudging Daniel playfully with his shoulder, which almost knocked him over completely. "Sorry," said Thorn as he helped Ryton Daniel. Daniel chanced a nervous look at John, where he was staring at Daniel intensely, and Daniel found himself horrifyingly unable to look away. "I just started to like you, boy," said John. "I'd hate to ruin that by showing you how it feels to have a flaming metal hand shoved up your ass. The laughter of the guardians echoed through the large chamber as they reached the tree and followed Wade into the portal and across the veil. "Not much further," the woman said to her assistant. "The energy signature is just around the bend here," she said, pointing to a curve in the trail coming up ahead, appearing out of the thick forest. The woman and her assistant walked down the trail for about a mile until it suddenly veered right into a beautiful oasis. It was in a large and equally beautiful clearing. Before the pair walked much further, a small whitish gold light became visible, hovering just about 3 feet off of the ground. And as the two moved closer, a small congregation of fairies became visible. Pink, radiant dots circling the whitish gold orb, almost protectively. "I've never seen that many fairies at once," said her assistant, worried. "Have you, ma'am?" he said, asking his mentor. "Only once," said the scientist. "Back when my team were allowed an audience with the A Forest God." "One of the elementals, you mean?" asked her assistant. "Yes," she answered. Before the tablet she was holding began making urgent sounds as the screen was glowing in places. "What is it, ma'am?" asked the assistant. "Something's happening," she answered. "Its molecular structure is changing rapidly." With a dark green flash and a small cry, the orb of light vanished, and in its place stood a baby deer with dark green yet brightly illuminated eyes. The fairies started circling the newborn deer more and more quickly until the fairies vanished and the deer along with them. The lead scientist began frantically pressing buttons on her tablet, almost dropping it in the process, before a stern voice finally answered the devices. "What's the issue? We just received Ryden's quad unit with some fresh initiatives arriving from Mountain Sanctuary 3, along with John himself. They are telling us some pretty disturbing updates that—" "Taggart!" The woman screamed, panicked and impatient. "We just witnessed a forest elemental being born not 21 miles from the main house." "Get back here on the double," ordered Taggart. "You need to talk to John and the rest now." "What's happening, Tag?" she asked, worried. "Things are changing, Katarina," answered Taggart before pausing and exhaling deeply. The storm. It's coming." Wow. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. What an absolutely intriguing, chest-pounding, incredible story there from our good friend and brand new author to the show, Mr. David Morningway. I really hope you enjoyed that one as much as I know my voice is literally breaking and wanting to quit altogether. Big thank you, David, of course, for penning this and getting it over to me. Absolutely fantastic writing and character development, and I really can't wait to see where you take us next on your adventures. As ever, I hope you enjoyed my rendition and eagerly await any updates in the future. Well, guys and girls as ever, you know the drill. Please do let me know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. Now, if you're an aspiring writer or would just like to have a crack at things like myself, then please do get in touch with me at the contact email, which is as on screen. contactthedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. I hope you all had a fantastic start to the month and an even better end to the week. And I'm looking forward to putting your feet up for the weekend with good food and drink and even better company. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.